Good morning, teachers. This is Susan Koppendrayer, and I'm here to just say I'm so glad that you were a part of Christian School Educators Science Academy, and I just wanted to challenge you to try one new thing. And one of the things that might be the easiest for you to try, and actually one of the most effective things to try as you integrate a biblical perspective in science, is to work on creating essential questions from a biblical perspective. And I'm here in my classroom, and I wanted to show you some of the things that I do to remind myself to tell God's story in science. So to begin with, the 8th graders have something they call Science in the News, and they read articles and then talk about them from a biblical perspective. And so one of the essential questions is, do you agree with this article, and what does it say about God's creation and about God's story? So that's one of the ways that we add God's perspective in science. Another way would be to do something like an engineering design challenge. My 6th graders are doing roller coasters made out of paper and marbles, and they have several essential questions that are important for Newton's laws. But one of them also is, how does our understanding of the physics of roller coasters help us to discover the order God placed in his creation? And also, how might a roller coaster engineer be considered a creation enjoyer and a beauty creator? Those are just two ways that I add a God story within even an engineering design challenge. Also, one other thing I wanted you to know that I do is I post essential questions like this on my board, and each student has a copy. And so there's like, what are Newton's laws of motion? But in addition, I say, how are forces and motion a gift from God? And at the start of every unit, I also have I can statements, things that students can do and should be able to do by the end of a unit. And within those, I do add God's perspective and biblical integration questions, so that even in assessment, the students are asked to answer questions that talk about how does God care for his creation through motion and physics, but also how does our understanding of motion help us to see God's fingerprints in his creation. So I hope these things give you some ideas of what you can do to just try one thing. So I would consider or ask you to just take one of your essential questions and write it from a biblical perspective, and then assess students on those questions to get a sense of what they think and how they see God's story in science. Thanks for listening.